Run the strategy planning for HP North America. And what's really cool is that this guy looks after both consumer and B2B at HP.
Wow.
So that's what we're going to get into a bit, is like, how do we learn from consumer and how Scott's seen the world? Because prior to HP, Scott was leading marketing at Anheuser-Busch, either Budweiser and Bud Light in the B2B capacity. Not at all. Not in the B2B capacity.
A little bit.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. I want to hear more about that. So he's like seen a lot in the B2B and the B2C world. And I think his perspective on bringing some B2C magic into B2B would be a fun way to shake things up at 4:45 this afternoon. Okay.
Hopefully.
All right. Okay. So Scott, my first question is, after you've been about a year at HP working on B2B strategy, after working on some very fun and iconic Outback brands, what's been most surprising about B2B marketing for you?
Two things. First, this is my second tour of duty at HP. So in another life, I worked at a media agency called Essence, and HP was my client. They fired us. So I hated them for a while, but now I'm not in the fold. One of the things that surprised me the most is how very similar their B2B plans were or are to what I was running in 2016 for them. Similar partners, similar strategies, similar customer lists. I mean, I could almost rewrite the deck in my sleep. And so I was surprised to see the lack of maybe advancement or risk taking that had happened internally at HP. And secondly, less of a surprise and more of a duh, kind of hit me in the face thing. It's just very different from spending $100 million against like the country. And selling another 6-pack of Bud Light to someone is a lot easier than selling another $2,000 laptop to a gamer or someone else.
That makes a lot of sense. So wait, they fired your agency, and then they changed nothing in the intervening, what was it, 8 to 12 years?
You know,
so like
we adopted,
that seemed like a smart.
we just did such a great job for them back in the day. Everything that I put in place, perfect. So there's no change. Hey, that's great. Yeah.
Your agency seemed to add literally no value. Okay. Sorry, I don't want to.
No, that's fine. Well, now
on your current agency partner.
there are now like 8 essentials. That's what we called ourselves at Essence that are in-house at HP.
Nice. Awesome. And HP's taken most everything in-house by me, right?
Yeah, we buy, I'd say, in North America, 90+% of our media in-house, except for traditional channels like TV, through which we buy through PhD.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, sorry, this is off script, but so you were on their account as an agency person. Now you're on them as they transition to in-house. Like, what is that like? What's your perspective on in-house versus?
It gets a lot cleaner. Things happen more quickly. Not quickly enough, but more quickly. The folks who are actually hands-on keys making those day-to-day decisions are closer to the conversations with the business about how that impacts the bottom line. And so I think it is a good example of the positives of in-housing. I will say, though, that if you are a company that is considering in-housing your media buying duties, there are certainly some drawbacks. I mean, the agency model is kind of broken in general, and we'll see some seismic shifts in the next couple of years, but you really start to feel your limits of your team. Whereas when you're an agency, the client doesn't see how the sausage is made a lot of the times. Behind the scenes, you can pull an extra 24-year-old who's making $25,000 a year to pull your report. You've got an in-house team. This is the team to do it. And we are feeling that right now. We have 57 campaigns, different campaigns. I know it's a dirty C word that we just talked about, running right now in this quarter.
Wow, yeah. But I think that pulling the hands-on keyboard people as close to the business as possible is probably priceless. Like, I was just talking to an agency where the brand Hershey has hired us to do a custom algorithm that's like to store sales of candy. And it weirdly happened that the agency didn't really understand what was going on and was like, well, your CPMs are high. We're like, we increased store sales of Halloween candy by 2 basis points. Like, that's and they're like, what? Like, why does that matter? And I'm like, oh my God.
By the way,
Oh my God.
there's a great white paper.
Why am I leaning to your agency? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a great white paper on this, or a case study on this exact campaign that landed in my inbox. And I emailed Allie. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I want to do this at HB, not with candy. They knew it.
Yeah.
I think
You're going to share that with everybody.
absolute. That's the thing. That's the cool thing. The other cool thing that we'll do after this. I think agencies lack, or a lot of bigger brands are not going to share some of that data back with their agency partners. And so the agency is only able to speak to things like, yes, we lowered your CPM.
Right.
Or
When I think it was the accident, Hershey didn't mean to not include them in this conversation about real results. They just like, whatever, moved fast and like, or maybe the agency didn't pick up on it. Anyway, it's, okay. Okay, I want to know what you think the B2B business, B2B marketers could learn from B2C marketing.
I think they could do with a little bit more risk. I think there is a proclivity to be very conservative on the B2B side of the house, particularly so when you have, so I get a brief that says, here's a list of 200 companies. I only want to talk to people who have the job title of ITBM within this company. Any impression outside of that list doesn't matter. And I think that's a little bit old and outdated. And I think it doesn't do justice for the company as a whole. Maybe in that one campaign in a vacuum, it makes sense. I also believe that there needs to be more of a focus on brand in B2B, particularly for a company like HP, where if I were to poll this whole room, have you ever heard of HP? I'd be shocked if most of you didn't raise your hands, or all of you. But I think if I were to ask the follow-up question, like, what do you think HP stands for? What does HP mean? I'd probably get 20 different answers. And that's exactly what we're feeling right now. We have so many siloed pieces of the organization where we've got one group talking to one group of customers about security. We've got another group talking to another group of customers, potential customers, about services. We don't have that overarching, this is what HP can bring to your business, and then work down kind of like a decision tree down through those potential customers or prospects' needs.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want to ask, so I know that your CEO has said that this is going to be the year of the AI laptop.
Yeah.
That makes me think about like the fact that people have different opinions of HP. They don't really know. Do you think you guys are going to coalesce around HP as the AI company?
I hope so.
Home office?
I hope so.
Not home office, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have a remit in the next 6 months to help drive opinion in the broader marketplace of HP as a thought leader in the AI space. That's a pretty broad
remit, yeah.
Right? And I don't actually have, I think, the money to do it. So we're going to talk about what's the roadmap look like for that. That's also not a job that the best media strategy or buying or planning can do on its own.
Yeah.
I think our CMO has taken on a new role of chief marketing and comms officer. And so he's working on doing exactly what I hoped he would do, which is make a plan for what HP means. New brand pillar, new brand perspective. And I think that AI is going to be a big part of that. Then it's a matter of, okay, we can take that message, we can put that message in front of the right people, be it a consumer audience or a commercial audience, and start to drive that saliency of that individual piece.
That makes me think too, like what I always say, it's like our algorithms can make the best decisioning about where to place your ad, but if the creative doesn't work, like it doesn't matter. And I was thinking that too, right? Like your job will only be like getting HP to be known as the AI company. Like it's only going to be as good, not only as good, but you have to have that creative foundation for you. Otherwise.
Absolutely. I think HP lacks some differentiation on the B2B side. And if you were to ask someone who's in procurement at a potential client, why should you buy HP over Dell, over Acer, over Lenovo? I don't know that we have a really great answer, or that we could really back that up with anything that says, yes, this is why, XYZ, why we're different, why you should make this purchase. A good example that I think we could use from another part of the business is on our consumer print side of the house. There's a study that says that HP is the most trusted printer brand in the United States for the last 25 years. So we say HP equals trust, and we're building a whole campaign ecosystem out of this trust messaging. And we're starting to see that just by putting that out into the ether, that is moving some of the other metrics that we want to see. We're growing share in different categories of the print market that we were before. And I think we need something like that, and our competitors or other companies need to embrace that model as well. What do you stand for, right? How you talk about that message then.
Yeah, that's interesting. Does the message need to be different for B2B and B2C when it comes to like the brand values or that like core value proposition?
That's a great question. I think it can do both.
Okay.
If you can really nail it. I think that we at HP have a ton of work to do to nail what that is, because we've been functioning so separately for so long, and we are such a huge business that sells so many different things to so many different people. I mean, does anyone in this room know that we also own like Poly and HyperX and Omen and all of these other things, right? And trying to find a message that, or an umbrella that covers all of those things is really, really tough. So how do we make the choice of what is that one message that kind of works in all of those places? Or do we decide differently and say, we're just not going to focus on Poly right now. We're going to focus on building the HP brand in our consumers' minds and go from there.
I mean, is there something that you can share about the AI laptop that's gonna make us say, I'll say, oh, next computer is an HP?
That's a hard one too. I think I'm not as in-depth in the specs of exactly what's in there. I know they have some really great updated processors, some really great updated chips that allow for better collaboration, less battery usage, quicker AI video editing capabilities, all kinds of collaboration tools that are technically great. I think we're probably, though, in the first generation of numerous generations of the best AI laptop that's out there. And I think it's about kind of separating the wheat from the chaff in these things. I actually was reading an article on Gizmodo about Amazon Fresh stores. I don't know if you recall that they were touted as this fully automated, like they knew what was in your cart before you checked out and you could just walk out the door. It turns out it was like 1,000 people in India that were watching on video and were actually thinking, no, this did work. That's exactly right. And it's like this thing from a company that we all kind of trust to be leaders in the space, like in Amazon, was just smoke and mirrors. And so what degree is smoke and mirrors and what degree is real? What's going to feel meaningful to the consumer, whether that's an actual consumer audience or a commercial audience? That's our job to help tell that story and have the actual hardware to back it up.
Yeah, I love the term used earlier, AI washing. I felt like, oh my gosh, that's what we face all the time. Is like, there's so many marketing companies talking about AI that it's like, I have to enter a conversation. It's like, no, but we actually really are.
Yeah. Well, that's right. What is AI? What does AI mean to HP in our journey to sell to a commercial audience, right? There's dumb AI, which is like our Facebook algorithms, just like optimizing in general in real time. And then there's far more complex things that we'll get into. But it's difficult to navigate space.
Yeah, that makes sense. What kind of AI marketing tools are you excited about or implementing?
I would love to implement a custom algorithm to help Etsy butouts do that. Yeah,
I really do.
I think we have taken a lot of advantage of AI-driven creative tools. We struggle producing enough creative on time that passes muster from our alliance partners. We get a lot of funding from other companies to help run our ads. And so the approval process just to get something live is long. And so when we have the opportunity to leverage even something like Google has a product that allows us to edit our videos to basically change the facial structure of the person in the video to make it look like they're speaking another language and overdub the language on top of that. That's something that would take us months to do.
Right.
And we're able to do it pretty much immediately and get it into market much more quickly. So for now, it's been more on the creative side, but I think we're working to do more on the, in a commercial lens, specifically on the like lead scoring and lead velocity and that data feedback loop from what we are running to the sales team to getting the feedback then back to us. Because one of the things I discovered when I started was that feedback loop was like very broken or not existent in a lot of cases. And so what we are reporting on as a media or marketing organization is really, really, really low cost per lead. But we've got a sales team over there that says, but they're all so who cares, right?
Yep.
Like it doesn't matter. And so we need a way in real time to get information back from our sales team to say, these ones worked, these ones didn't work, and then let the algorithms optimize towards people who look more like that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not happening today, I should say. It's a roadmap thing.
Yeah. Our perspective is like brands have always had the most powerful component of AI, which is the training data. Training data is gold. And why hand that over to a platform who's going to use it to get smarter for their own purposes, which are usually to squeeze more margin out of you and give you leads, like give you this false sense of, like, I think Patrick called it empty calories, right? Like, or we call it handing out coupons at the cash register, right? Like all this non-incremental growth that is not there, that like then the CFO is like, you're telling me as marketing, you drove all this incremental sales and like it's not there in my like actual numbers. Anyhow, I think brands are going to be like waking up to that and starting to say, yeah, I want a closed feedback loop. I want to understand how this is actually going into the decisioning of things and what am I learning back and how do I use my training data for myself as the brand to get smarter and to have control.
Absolutely. When I started in the role, I went on a bit of a listening tour, talked to a lot of salespeople, and I had this aha moment where they were like, the leads that have been delivered in the last 6 months are so bad, I want you to stop doing lead gen and just do broad kind of programmatic buying on the sites where I think my accounts are. I never had someone ask for less on the targeted media for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I think we need to stop everything that we're doing, take a minute to breathe, and really assess what we're doing and the impact of it to the business. And someone mentioned the word campaign being a dirty word, and we run something for 3 months and then we measure it and then we go and we just do another thing. I am pushing really hard to, this is not a groundbreaking idea, but to plan for a year, for 3 months instead of 3 months, right? But for an old company like an H, who's not 147 years old, but it's pretty old, and it's very finance driven, I'm having to make new relationships with or parts of the organization that I never would have spoken to before. I'm getting really close to my finance partners because they're the ones that are going to help me move the dollars behind the scenes or get the dollars earlier or, give me a better opportunity to sell in what we're doing with those dollars to the C-suite effectively.
Yeah. Cool.